I realised as I was preparing for the session today that we're actually representing 4 different continents. We've come here this week from 4 different continents, which is pretty cool to be able to connect, especially after being kind of at home on Zoom away from connection. So it's such an exciting opportunity to be together. So thank you all for coming, for travelling such great distances to be here. I really appreciate you making that commitment to coming together and supporting each other as part of this community. And so today I wanted to talk to you about rethinking learning experiences or learning engagements through the lens of a concept-based curriculum. So Chee Kin, I'm going to start with you. How's concept-based curriculum changed your approach to designing learning engagements?
Okay, so initially the learning engagements were written to target the assessment goals. So a lot of the process skills were actually being assessed, and at the same time that's why the learning engagements were actually targeted for that goal. So having learned about the concept-based approach, okay, what we realized was that the students were not able to transfer the skills that they have examined in the assessments, okay, across different disciplines. So, and therefore we decided to have a relook at the learning engagements that we have planned, and what we realized that there needs to be a balance. We need to account for the assessment goals as well as to be accountable to the students' learning experiences and their ability to have the concepts to be transferred across different disciplines. So, so in this case is that we have to adopt a starter approach so that we can have and we can write a learning engagements that will address these 2 goals at the same time. So we are in the process of doing that, and we hope that it will be successful. And actually, I think in my opinion here is, I find that writing learning engagements for the lower years, okay, it seems to be easier because the concepts in mathematics are easier for the lower years to write. Yeah.
When you're talking about lower years, are you talking about lower middle school?
Middle school, yes, lower middle school, correct. So because the concepts that are in the DP years tends to be very huge concepts, and they're very macro in nature, and within those macro nature concepts there are a lot of micro concepts that needs to be addressed. So
can you give us an example?
For example, okay, let's say we are talking about linear functions. So in linear functions, even though students have learned it in their lower middle years before already, but when they move on to the higher levels, they would have to learn how to transfer this not only within the mathematics field itself, okay, but across to other subjects. So for example, within mathematics, they have to learn it to apply to simple interest, learn it to apply to arithmetic sequences and series, learn it to model a linear function, okay, and if we are talking about applying it to across different disciplines, then they have to apply it to understanding the concepts in economics, because a lot of the economical graphs, they are linear in nature, but how they interpret it is a bit different. Okay, so if they understood the concept of linearity, which is just basically a direct variation, okay, then the students will be able to understand how economics and mathematics can merge together to form an understanding that can help them to perhaps write their essays better, express themselves in their internal assessments better.
Do you think that teachers have enough opportunity at those upper levels to collaborate and to be intentional about those connections between mathematics and economics? Is the way that we're currently working in those upper kind of grade 11, grade 12 classrooms, are teachers working together in that way and maximising the opportunity for transfer?
Okay, I think this needs to come from a whole school approach, in that time needs to be planned in the timetable for this collaboration to work. Okay, so in my school, we do have a day in the afternoon in which we call it a collaborative session, or what we call professional development session, in which we can call meetings to engage different teachers from different departments to learn about how they can collaborate with each other. So these are things that we try to give to the teachers so that they have the opportunities to do all these things here. Yeah.
Interesting. And what does that look like for you, Dana, in your school context? How has concept-based learning changed your approach to designing learning experiences?
Well, when we're speaking about learning engagements, I felt that we are increasing the depth of those learning engagements. So for example, previously we would just give 1 or 2 or 3 learning engagements and then just move on to generalizing or talking about the central idea or the big ideas. Now we're going in depth. Like for example, in one learning engagement you can have different case studies, which is giving them breadth to the students and checking different case studies to be able to generalize afterwards. It's different when you just give them one example, one reading text or one video, and that's it. So I feel that the exposure really helps the students generalize better.
And how's that translated for students? What does that look like in the classroom when you're getting that extra depth?
Well, it works wonderful. There's an example that I always like to share about CBCI. Once I was taking a course, and it was about Spanish. I have no idea about Spanish. And my son, he's 8-year-old. He's an 8-year-old. He passed by and he saw me learning Spanish in a CBCI session. So he was really interested.
Was this with Raphael?
Yeah, it was with Raphael. So he was really interested. So he sat down with me and spent the whole 2 hours learning. And he actually acquired the learning outcome of the session. And he was able to speak Spanish and to differentiate between the different things we had to do. And that was like an aha moment for me. I looked back and like, he's 8-year-old. He was able to do the same thing I am able to do. So it's really amazing.
And he chose to do it. Presumably he could have gone off and done something else during that time.
Speaking of choice, it really gives agency in the classroom. So like when they're working together, when they are reaching those generalizations, when they are deciding what is the answer for those guiding questions, this is agency, giving them choice, voice, and ownership. Not only that, you can also feel that they are really employing the skills, like the different skills that we talk about. You can see that they're socializing together, working really well together. The thinking skills, they're going into depth when they are actually finding those answers to the guiding questions, asking more questions. So it's really wonderful. And what I would really like to add about the impact on students is that they really transfer their learning. It's also not only in the context of the classroom. When they are able to generalize and reach those big ideas, the generalizations themselves, they are able to use them outside the school context, not only in the classroom. So this is where we take them beyond the classroom walls.
What about you? What's going on in your school at the moment?
Well, prior to attending the concept-based curriculum courses, at that time we thought that when we are designing the learning, it's just only for the sake of the learning engagement. So there is no meaning on that one. But then after attending the courses, and then I share it to my team at that time, our mindset changed. So when we are setting the learning engagement, we are trying to look at the concepts, and then we are trying to combine that one with the skills. So everything is when, and then the learning transfer from that one. So it's not just only learning engagement for the sake of the learning engagement, but it is more meaningful right now.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Amazing.
So it's interesting to see that actually the impact on students is very great, but the impact on teachers is also very great because the teachers have a changed mindset. So, and it is not only a change, it is a growth mindset, because I think a lot of, even for me, we learned it how we were taught. Previously. So now here is we have a new way of teaching it. So once we have a new way of teaching it, we are able to see the growth not only in ourselves, because we reflect on our own teaching and learning, okay, but we also see the change in our students. And we hope that this change will follow with them even when they have graduated from the school. Yeah. That's important that we see those things.
I think, yeah, it is, because that's when it becomes, nobody becomes a teacher just to, you know, have a 9 to 3 job, because we all know that it's not 9 to 3, that most teachers are working way more than that. And if that's what they signed on for, really they won't last in the profession really very long. We come into this profession to make a difference. And for some teachers, they feel frustrated by that lack of opportunity to make a difference. So many teachers that I have spoken to talked about, I was ready to leave the profession because I was just managing classrooms until I discovered concept-based, and it's no longer about the grades that students are getting. It's about the understanding and the connections that they're making. And that's an incredibly powerful shift in someone's career, to go, I found that purpose again. I've rediscovered why I got into teaching in the first place, and the difference that I'm making is incredible. So.
Yeah, and I do agree with you with that. And to add on is that sometimes as a student in class, the students will see that the teacher has the passion to teach because the teacher is really engaged in the classroom. Once the students can see that, the students will be able to cooperate with you. So that is the important part of the passion in the teacher to teach. And having said that, here is that if I want to give an advice to a teacher who says that his or her passion is dwindling, okay, one way to go about doing it is that why don't we encourage them to start a professional learning circle in their own way, so that like-minded teachers will be able to make this change grow. Okay, start from a seedling and then it can grow and hopefully can influence not only themselves but the whole school as a whole.
And what does that look like? What do those professional learning circles look like?
Those professional learning circles can be such that, as I said before, it is like-minded teachers. Okay, you need to approach teachers who you already know they are going to be accepting this kind of changes. So from there we start. And after we start, we plan. We plan already, we execute. And at the time of execution, we invite people into the classroom to see the difference that it can make to the classroom.
I love what you just said, because I've worked with schools all over the world, and in some schools they want everybody to have the same professional learning at the same time, and I'll go in and it'll be a 2-day workshop and then done. Yeah. But the schools that I see really making a difference and sticking at it, and this becoming a long-term commitment to concept-based, are the schools who don't start with everybody doing the same PD. Just as you're describing, like, we start with people who we know are interested and who are going to be our early implementers, who are excited to try these things and are already on board. They're just looking for learning. And then when they're excited, when they're having success in their classrooms, when they're getting that piece that we talked about earlier of that buzz and that change that's happening, the school leadership don't need to sell it anymore, because those teachers are saying, hey, you need to do this course, or you need to learn this, or come and watch my classroom as you're describing. I'd love you to see what's happening. I'm going to get students to share their big ideas today, and I'd love for you to see that. And then the next group of teachers are like, wow, you know, or sometimes it's even walking through the classroom. Like, I worked with one teacher at my local school, and what I did with them was left on the board, and suddenly I had another teacher going, well, can you come and do something with me? Because I can, you know, I saw that thing that was on the board there. And then that, in that class, one of the teachers had a child who then went home and described the learning that they'd done that day, and this parent's suddenly interested. So that genuine interest from teachers, like I was saying, teachers are there to make a difference. And when they see that something is making a difference, they're going to get on board. But when we push everybody to move together, then those who are feeling burnt out from that innovation fatigue are going to bring the whole group down, because they're kind of going, here we go again. It's the latest thing. Next month it'll be something different. But when we can start with people who are excited, that's how I think we create that long-term change. Tjandra, I wanted to ask you, what role do guiding questions have in designing learning engagements?
For me, guiding question is just like the guiding lights, where it's just like treasures. Because let me just give you an example. For example, at the time, I got confused because I want to buy a typical camera, but then I got confused between should I buy a pocket camera or should I buy a more advanced camera, the DSLR camera, the big one like that one. So I asked my friend, and then he just told me, oh yeah, I think that you should get this one. It should be good for you. But at the time, I'm still confused. Should I still buy this one? Or should I get the other one? So I went to meet another friend who is a photographer. And this time, when I share my intention, and he asked me a lot of questions, and those questions helped me to choose which camera that suit my purpose. So the guiding questions are just like the treasures that will give you the light to show you the way.
I love that analogy, because the piece that really resonates with me is you went to buy a camera and you didn't know what questions to ask. Because sometimes we want the whole inquiry to be led by student questions, but when you don't know something, you don't know what you don't know, and you don't know what questions to ask. And so that idea of asking somebody who was an expert, who was passionate about cameras, the guiding questions, it was your inquiry still. His questions were part of your inquiry and helped you to really deepen your understanding. So that's
And I think like guiding questions complement the learning engagements. Like sometimes you might really plan for an amazing learning engagement and you don't ask the right questions. Then you just lose the whole opportunity. I would like to share an example. So once we had a KG2 classroom, there were like 5-year-olds, and next to the school we had this green field and there were sheep there. They went and they inquired and they observed, and there was one of them giving birth. So it was such an amazing experience. So the students were so curious about it. They went back to the classroom, and then the teacher started asking them questions. The questions were so basic. I was in there. So she was telling them, what did you see? What did you see? So the answer was like, we saw the sheep. They were giving birth. That's it. And then I just jumped in and started asking those conceptual questions, and the students amazed me with their answers and with other questions that they started asking. So they were wondering about what do sheep do when they're cold? How do they sleep? And you know, the conversation went a totally different way. So I feel that they really complement each other. We really need to design very good guiding questions.
Yeah, to unlock student thinking. Yeah. I think for me, for a long time, I didn't really unlock the power of guiding questions because I was so focused on the conceptual understandings that I didn't understand the importance of the relationship between guiding questions and the scaffolding to the generalization. I was writing guiding questions and I was asking the guiding questions, because that's another thing. I've definitely been with teachers who, when we come to reflect on the unit, there was a question on the PYP planner that said, you know, to what extent did your guiding questions drive the inquiry? And one of the teachers said to me once, oh, are we supposed to actually ask those questions? I thought they were just for the teacher. And I was like, no, that's the guiding. And so being able to use those questions, as you were saying, like that's the connection with the learning experiences. Those guiding questions are how we decide, is this learning experience valid? Because if it's not going to answer our questions, why is it in the unit?
Exactly, which takes me back to what you were saying. Regarding the teachers, I feel with CBCI they need to be implementing more in the planning rather than in the sessions. Because in the session it's like fully
What do you mean by in the session?
Like what I mean is that they need to be planning very well to have a very good plan for their session in the classroom. And then in the classroom itself, when they're actually teaching, it's more the effort on the students and they're just the guide in the classroom. Because like I know, as you were saying, that many teachers would teach burnout because they're just trying to manage those students and, you know, classroom management issues, and they're feeling that they're not actually achieving what they want or their goal in teaching. teaching. But when they're really planning very good plans that are where the students are the center of the classroom, when you go into the classroom and you find everyone really excited to learn and they're just adding those answers and their other questions, this is really the impact that we want to see. And when they see that, they really get motivated. So what I'm saying is that they need to put effort more into planning than into just having this sense of I am the main person in the classroom. I'm going to be doing all the work for the students.
Dr. Lynn Erickson used to say, thinking classrooms require thinking teachers. And that couldn't be more true in terms of the intent that goes into that unit planning, and the thinking that is designed will create or provide opportunities for that thinking and that student agency and that ownership of the learning. Absolutely. Dana, what impact are you seeing in your classroom as you rethink learning experiences?
Well, as we just mentioned, you feel that the students are the center of the classroom. You feel that they are really engaged in what they're learning and they're really interested to learn and inquire more, just like we mentioned. You start with a certain guiding question and you end up with a very different one. Like in the last session I gave about personal narratives to grade 4 students, they amazed me with their generalizations. I never thought of them. The words they used, like one of them said that I really liked this personal narrative that you shared with us because it has relatable experience. I mean, the word relatable, I never thought about it. So they really amaze you with their answers and with their thinking, and because it's like a totally different perspective. It's their perspective. And when they are responsible for their own learning, this is where they can transfer learning outside the school context and outside the classroom. So the impact has been great. Students are more motivated, they're more engaged in the classroom, they are leading the learning.
Yeah, fantastic. And Chee Kin, what are you seeing? What's the impact on students in your classroom?
So regarding the students, I see that sometimes their feedback is very interesting in that sometimes they give me the feedback to say that, hey, whatever we shared in class became a shared knowledge to propel the learning forward so that they can learn more things from all the collective knowledge that they have learned. So, and this comes from a student, and of course, then I asked the student, what made you say that? Then students mentioned that, oh, actually they learned about the shared knowledge from the theory of knowledge classroom, and that now he has brought in across from there into the mathematics classroom and see that it can also help to propel learning in a different way. So, and a lot of this learning engagements that we try to plan for the students, okay, we have to, as Dana has said, we have to make sure that the plan actually is well thought of, okay, so that when we execute them, it will go towards a direction that we want to see the students learn in that way also. Yeah. Thank you.
Tjandra?
Well, when we, just like what Chee Kin says, that when we plan a well-thought learning engagement that will help the students to transfer their knowledge, their understanding to different subjects. So, and that's what I see after we implement this concept base in the classroom practice.
Yeah. Wow, so powerful. Well, thank you so much for joining me for this conversation today. It's always an inspiration to hear the difference that it's making in classrooms to teachers and to students, and continue to share. I love to continue to hear your stories.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.